Good morning. So today we're going to carry on talking about Davy Crockett. And if you remember, yesterday we read this biography about Davy Crockett's life. He is a real person. He lived in a real place. He fought battles that were real. And what you should have just watched is a video on what is a legend on YouTube. And so if you can remember, the characteristics of a legend are it can be based on reality but exaggerated. Again, very similar to tall tales. There could be a specific setting and culture, and the hero is a protagonist. It means he's the good guy. It may include magic and imagination, and may include ghostly or supernatural. It doesn't have to, though. So, your assignment today as we read is to fill out this graphic organizer where we're comparing a biography versus a legend. And you can put here, we're going to compare what we read yesterday, which was What's So Great About Davy Crockett, the biography, to a book today that is called Davy Crockett Saves the World. And so you can put that here. And when we compare them and contrast them, these are things that they're going to have in common. So before I even start reading, I know that one thing that they both have in common is they're both about Davy Crockett, right? And then things that are separate with the biography that are different from the legend, we're going to see facts. And here we're going to see exaggerations. But I want you to think more specifically the examples you see when we read this story. I'll also attach the story for you to read so that you can go back and refer to the text if you need to. All right, let's get started here. Davy Crockett Saves the World by Rosalyn Schanzer. All right, it does say here that the genre is a tall tale. Tall tales and legends are very similar. And again, this is a folklore, so these are stories that have been passed along through oral traditions. I reckon by now you've heard of Davy Crockett, the greatest woodsman who ever lived. Why, Davy could whip 10 times his weight in wildcats and drink the Mississippi River dry. He combed his hair with a rake, shaved his beard with an axe, and could run so fast that whenever he went out, the trees had to step aside to keep from getting knocked down. Folks always crow about the deeds of Davy Crockett, but the biggest thing he ever did was to save the world. This here story tells exactly how he did it, and every single word is true, unless it's false. So there's a little bit of humor there. About the time our tale begins, the world was in a heap of trouble. Away past the clouds and far beyond all the stars and planets in outer space, scientists with telescopes had discovered the biggest, baddest ball of fire and ice and brimstone ever to light up the heavens. Its name was Halley's Comet, and it was hurling itself lickety-split straight toward America. Why, its tail alone was 2 million miles long. If it were to hit the earth, everyone would be blown to smithereens. The President of the United States started getting big piles of letters telling him to stop Halley's Comet before it was too late. He made a law telling the comet it couldn't crash into the earth, but the comet paid no attention. It just kept speeding toward America and growing bigger every day. Finally, the president had an idea. He had heard of a brave man named Davy Crockett who lived somewhere in the mountains far away. He put an advertisement in the newspaper in America that said, "Wanted by the President of the United States, Davy Crockett, to pull the tail off Halley's Comet." Meanwhile, Davy Crockett didn't know a thing about any comet. He had no idea that the Earth was even in danger. Davy was off in the forest with his pet bear, Death Hug. He was teaching himself to dance so that he could impress a real purty gal named Sally Sugartree, who could dance a hole through a double oak floor. He was not reading any newspapers. It took 2 whole weeks, but once Davy had learned all the latest dances, he combed his hair nice and slow with his rake, shaved his face real careful like with his axe, and sauntered off towards Sally Sugartree's cabin, just as easy as you please. At this time, of course, Halley's Comet was getting closer and closer to the Earth and moving faster by the minute. Now, Sally Sugartree was not just pretty, but she was right smart too. Sally read the newspaper front to back every day, and she knew all about Halley's Comet. She had also seen the advertisement from the president. Sally climbed up a 15-foot hickory tree and commenced to look for Davy Crockett. Before long, she spotted him away far off in the forest. Sally grabbed up her newspaper and waved it around just as hard as she could. When Davy saw her, he grinned and started to walk a mite faster. Hey, that was an old vocabulary word, mite. As soon as Davy got close enough, Sally jumped right out of that tree. Davy caught her in his arms and gave her such a hug that her tongue stuck out half a foot and her eyes popped out like a lobster's. Then she showed Davy the want ad from the president. Davy still didn't know what Halley's Comet was, but if the President of the United States wanted to see him, he would waste no time getting to Washington. He bridled up Death Hug and set out like a high-powered hurricane. He could dance with Sally later. Death Hug was so fast that rocks and trees and cows and snakes and other varmints all flew out behind him. By the time they reached the White House, Halley's Comet was getting so close that there wasn't a minute to lose. The president told Davy to climb the highest mountain he could find right away and to wring that comet's tail off before it could destroy the Earth. Then the president posed with Davy for pictures and pretended to look calm. Davy combed his hair with his rake, rolled up his sleeves, and ate a big plate full of pickled rattlesnake brains fried by lightning to give him energy. Then he commenced to climb all the way to the top of Eagle Eye Peak in the Great Smoky Mountains. That's a real place. Eagle Eye Peak was so high you could see every state and river and mountain in a whole geography book. You could also look away far off into outer space. By the time Davy reached the top, it was night. Interesting illustration of the comet there, huh? Halley's Comet spotted Davy Crockett right away. It took a flying leap and zoomed past all the stars and planets. Then it laughed and headed straight toward Davy like a red-hot cannonball. Lightning and thunder shot out of its eyes. So many sparks flew out of its tail that even though it was night, the entire countryside lit up and all the roosters set to crowing. That comet must have thought Davy looked mighty tender, for it licked its chops, howled louder than 100 tornadoes, and roared toward him with its mouth wide open. This made Davy so mad that he jumped right over its shoulders and onto its back. Then he planted his teeth around the comet's neck and hung on. Halley's Comet spun around and around like a whirlwind, trying to throw Davy off, but it couldn't. Now off, that comet tried to drown Davy by diving into the Atlantic Ocean. The water got so all-fired hot that it boiled. The whole world was covered with steam, and the sun didn't shine as bright as usual for a month. Just in time, the ocean put out that comet's fire and melted all of its ice. It washed up on an island, and before it could grow back to its original size, Davy grabbed what was left of Halley's tail, spun around 17 times, and hurled the comet back into outer space. It was so discombobulated that the next time it ever came in this direction, it missed the Earth by 39 million miles. There's the comment, discombobulated or confused. That's how Davy Crockett saved the world. In fact, he did such a good job that there was a huge parade in his honor. He got to marry Sally Sugartree, and he was even elected to Congress, which we remember from yesterday is a fact, right? So that's something that yesterday's story and this story have in common, him being elected to Congress. Of course, that infernal fireball singed the hair right off of Davy's head. A whole new crop grew back in tufts like grass and kept in such a snarl that he couldn't even comb it without breaking his rake. That's why these days Davy Crockett always wears a coonskin cap. If you don't know what a coonskin cap is, you need to look it up because it's like made from a raccoon, and it has like the raccoon's tail that hangs down on his head. So here's a little bit about the author and the illustrator. She did both of those. So Rosalyn Schanzer loves adventure just as much as Davy Crockett. She fished for piranhas in South America, swam with sharks in Belize, kayaked with whales in Alaska, and even sailed a boat through the Bermuda Triangle. When Rosalyn wants to create a new story, she treks to different parts of the globe to seek an unusual adventure. Before words ever hit the page, Rosalyn illustrates her books. While traveling, she asks questions, snaps pictures, and researches facts that can be used for artistic inspiration. After Rosalyn illustrates her new ideas and adventures, she brings the story to life with words. It seems only fitting that Rosalyn, who has gone on such unique adventures, takes an unusual and adventurous approach to creating books. All right, so please go back now and you can fill out and compare the biography we read yesterday and the legend that we just read. What were things that were similar in both of the stories? What was only in the biography? And what was only in the legend? Let your teacher know if you have any questions.